Hello everyone. In today's session, we'll be discussing on GST E-Invoice, and then we'll be discussing on how it has been incorporated or planned to be incorporated in Ginesys. Let's start with the concepts. Firstly, what is E-Invoicing? It is a process in which the seller registers their GST documents to the government on real-time basis. For this, the government will be providing Invoice Registration Portal IRP. Seller's document becomes valid only if invoice reference number is generated via IRP. That is, you cannot share the document or dispatch the goods until the invoice is registered in IRP and IRN is generated. The purpose for this, as per our understanding, is to track the GST documents on real-time basis, to automate the GST return filing process. Reconciliation between seller and buyer gets smoother. Now let's discuss on its applicability. It's applicable from 1st April 2020 only for the sellers having turnover of more than 100 crore in the preceding year, only for B2B GST documents. The GST documents included will be tax invoice, credit note and debit note. This will also be applicable on reverse charge GST documents and export invoices. Now let's see the steps required to be done by the taxpayer. Prepare and release the invoice in ERP. Then the invoice needs to be registered in the IRP. Then update the registration details back to the ERP so that IRN can be printed on the invoice. What information will I get after registering my invoice as E-Invoice? Firstly, we'll get a invoice reference number. This is a unique registered number generated by the government portal against your GST document. It is mandatory to be printed on invoice. Acknowledgement number. This is an internal, or you can say a technical request number generated by the IRP. What is acknowledgement date? This represents the date and time on which the document got registered in the government portal. Signed QR code data. This is an encoded information returned by IRP which can be converted to a QR code format and can be printed on the invoice. On scanning the same, human cannot read or understand anything what's there in the code. It can be used by the tax officers to validate the invoice in their official apps. Modifying or cancelling E-Invoice. Modification is not possible once the invoice has been registered in the government portal. To make any such modification, government recommends you to cancel the E-Invoice and then regenerate the invoice. Cancellation is allowed only up to 24 hours from the invoice getting registered. Now let's see how Ginesys is incorporating the same. Ginesys will support two types of registration process. Number one will be using IRP via bulk utility. Similar to e-way bill, government is providing a bulk utility using which JSON can be prepared and uploaded in IRP, which in turn will generate e-invoice for multiple transactions at one go. Another option will be single-click API registration. We are working with partners to have an integrated solution via which, on a single click, e-invoice can be generated and updated into Ginesys. However, we are currently focusing on the bulk utility part, and we shall be releasing the single click API registration process in the subsequent versions. There can be many other options via which you can generate e-invoice, but we are focusing on these two as these two will be the widely used options for generating e-invoice. Now let's see the bulk generation tool process. Let's start with the user journey. First, the user generates the GST document in Ginesys. Then the user releases the GST document in Ginesys. Ginesys will be providing a report in both HO as well as POS, which will be in a tabular format and can be exported into an Excel sheet. Copy the exported data in government provided bulk generation tool. This is a bulk generation tool which the government is providing. You can copy paste the information here from the exported Excel sheet, validate the same. Once it gets validated, you can prepare a JSON file from this government utility itself. You can download the same using the government e-invoice portal, that is the IRP portal. Once the JSON gets created, you can upload the JSON and generate e-invoices in the IRP portal itself. After generation of e-invoices, you will get the Excel file which can be downloaded from the government portal, which will contain the acknowledgement number, date and IRN of the invoices. You will be provided with a provision to upload that Excel into Ginesys for updating the acknowledgement number, date and IRN into Ginesys transactions. Once that is updated, you can print the invoice with IRN printed on it. Note, the QR code data is not being reverted back to the ERP system if you are generating the e-invoice using the bulk utility tool. In case you feel that QR code needs to be printed, you can print the invoice from Ginesys. Similar to e-waybill, you can print the e-invoice from the government portal, attach the same on top of your invoice and send it to the buyer. Now let's see the HO impacted transactions. In sales and distribution module, we have sales invoice, sales return, sales credit note, sales debit note, sales service invoice, retail sale B2B invoice. In procurement section, since reverse charge transactions is also applicable, you have purchase invoice, purchase return, purchase debit note, purchase credit note, purchase service invoice, purchase service debit note. In all of them, reverse charge is applicable. So for reverse charge transactions, you need to generate the e-invoice. However, in case of purchase return, if you are treating it as a tax invoice, so you'll have to generate for that as well. So what provisions we'll be adding for generating e-invoice via HO? We will be facilitating by adding a report which you can download and export the data in Excel. We will be providing an import Excel for updating the IRN information back into Ginesys. For printing, we shall be making the IRN details available in the data source so that you can get it printed on the invoice. Note, there are some other changes, like we shall be applying restriction on document revert, as if the document is already registered to the IRP, the same cannot be changed. In case you want to change the invoice, you need to first remove the IRN information against the transaction and then revert the transaction. For removing the IRN information, we shall be providing a provision in the Excel import. Now coming to the impacted POS transactions, there are two transactions, POS return and POS bill. Again, for facilitation purpose, we shall be providing an analytic report which can be exported into a tabular format, and then you can further generate the e-invoice. For updating the e-invoice details into the system, in GRT you can manually paste the same similar e-waybill and then post the transaction. For POS, you can input the same using POS bill modification and then again reprint the invoice. Similar to HO, the GRT and POS invoice formats will get changed and IRN details will be printed on the same, and in the analytic reports we shall be providing the IRN details as well. Further, we shall be restricting GRT modification in case IRN details are provided. Also, we shall restrict POS bill void operation in case IRN details are provided. Thank you so much. We shall be releasing a how-to video as well once we are ready with the changes in Ginesys as described in this video. Thank you.